Hey guys, Steph Roberts here. I just wanted to let you know I'm super excited because today, drumroll please, I have my first, since quarantine, my first interview. And today it is with someone who represents both the survivor story, getting out of a domestic violence. She is a mama. She's young, like 2 years out of college young. She is an entrepreneur and she's just amazing. So she kind of embodies all of the things that I see coming together to create kind of a unique recipe for success for women like us who've been through situations where we may have experienced financial abuse, other types of abuse, being controlled, and just kind of reaching for something where we have control over our schedule, control over our money, control over our work hours, control over our livelihood, control over the possibilities for our future, and choosing something to do that isn't just a 9 to 5 answering to the man, like doing what we want in our soul that lights us up. And part of her mission very much intersects with mine. And so I'm just delighted to introduce you guys to Emma Ferrick. And she will tell you all about her story. Her survival story is kind of where we start. And then we move in a little bit to how that experience really lit a fire under her and encouraged her to start her business, and how she left her corporate position and was able to turn her side hustle into her full-time job. And she is now engaged and all kinds of good stuff. She has it's a tricky story. She has a tough story, but she turned it around. And I think that is what we are all looking for, is some hope. And I think she's got all of the pieces. So I'm super excited to introduce you to her. And so without further ado, here's the show. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening if you're on the podcast. And please do share this with any friends who you think could benefit from this. And I appreciate you as always, and hope you're doing well. Lots of love to you. And here we go. We're good. We're rolling.
Okay, cool.
So, Emma, you really are like everything rolled into one person. I'm like, awesome. And you're a young mom too, which is great because I have not interviewed a lot of younger moms. They all have, I can't say they all have the same story, but a lot of them have similar stories.
Yeah.
I'm trying to have more variety. So I was really glad to hear your story.
Thanks. I'm glad that you found it helpful to listen to some of the other podcasts I've been on. Yeah. Last year, my goal was to just be on one podcast. And then I was on one and I was like, I really like this. I want to keep doing this. And at first it wasn't like business related at all. I just wanted to share my story. And then as I grew my brand, and I was like, I really want to use my platform to like build my brand and make that as part of my brand, because that's a cause that I think is so important. Mm-hmm. So now I try to touch upon both my business and my story, because I think they're really intertwined too. And they're both just, one happened because of the other. Like, I guess like everything that I've been through definitely caused me to reevaluate everything and gave me kind of like the courage to start my business all in one.
So say more about that, because that's the interesting thing. And I say this many times on my intros and through all my podcasts, because it's really difficult to decide, like, do I have two podcasts? Do I just meld them into one? Because I didn't expect there to be such a correlation between these women who are mompreneurs and this whole other audience that I thought was a whole other audience of women who are survivors or trying to get out of domestic violence, emotional abuse, control, all that stuff. I do see, though, that the financial control doesn't go away. And so to me, it totally makes sense that most women getting out would be like, okay, I've probably been cut off at the knees for several years or decades without any money or any ability to earn money or any access to my own money, because many women have their checking accounts taken over by their husbands or partners. It's really frightening. So then, once you're out, you're like, nobody's controlling my life anymore. I'm going to be at the helm. So I'm just wondering if you could share more of your story, to the extent that you're comfortable, and how this all evolved.
Yeah. So I think my story is also unique, kind of like you said, I'm a young mom. So like the timing of everything happened was also what I feel like led to a lot of the emotional and financial kind of abuse, because usually when people think of abuse in a relationship, they mostly think of physical abuse, or now it's more widespread and more known for emotional and mental abuse to be kind of prominent. It's harder to detect, it's harder to prove, but it is there. And then financial abuse is also a huge part, kind of like you mentioned, with getting your bank account taken over. Luckily, we never had that situation where he had any control of my money, but he made me believe that I was so financially dependent on him. Like I had believed that because of I had just graduated, there was all this debt that I was now starting to pay off. I made the worst financial mistake of buying my own car. Like looking back after listening to so many financial gurus and podcasts, buying my own car new was just like, especially right out of college, just was not the best decision. But I wanted to have something that I, could have and drive for a while and was safe for my daughter. So, and that also put me in a weird position of, well, I'm 6 months pregnant and I just graduated from college. How do I go about even getting a job with everything? Because I could hide it, but I didn't want to hide it. I didn't feel like that was like the best way, but I didn't want someone to turn me down for a short-term decision when I would have been a really good long-term investment for them. Luckily, I was interning with a manufacturing company at the time. I had been there with them for over 3 months. They offered me a job, and that's when I told them I was expecting, and they said they'd still want me, and we would handle it and figure it out.
Wow, that's great.
So I stuck with that company until this April. So I was with them for almost 2 years after I graduated, but once everything transpired, I left. I was on my own because of the domestic violence. Got to a point that it was stay, or basically the next time would have been probably dead. So I had to make that decision and make that stand for myself and for my daughter. And that was a difficult decision. But once I completely felt like I hit rock bottom, I knew that there was all these changes that had to happen. And so I was working still at the manufacturing company, and I was like noticing that, I did my budget after listening to a bunch of personal finance podcasts and books and all that. I was negative over $400 a month with putting my daughter in daycare full time. That was with the new rent that I was going to be having, all my debt, all the payments, and I squeezed everything out that I could.
Yeah.
Like imaginable. And I was still going to be negative 400. And as a single mom, you start to panic, like, what about Christmas? What about this? What about that? There's expenses that come up. So you start to worry because you want to have that emergency fund, but what are you going to do? So that's when I decided to find something that I could, some work that I could do while still being at home with my daughter. And that's when I started my VA business. So I could just do it on the side and on weekends and at night. And I just found the whole world of online businesses, and I loved it. And I was like, this is what I wanted to do. This is what I want to do. Like, I want to quit my job. And as I started my business and I was growing, I met my now fiance. We got engaged a couple months ago, and he's been like a huge help to like provide that little bit of extra comfort of me quitting, there was someone there, which was like a huge hurdle for me to overcome. Because like you said, when you get out of something like that, you don't want to trust anybody and you don't want to give up that control. But I felt like that even gave me more of a push, because I never wanted to put myself back in that position of I'm dependent on someone else. So I want to be at home. So I have to make this work, and I'm not going to lean on anyone else to make it happen. But with COVID, I had no other choice, because he was also working. I was working and daycares were shut down. So I had to come home, but I knew I could make it happen with having my business for over 6 months at the time when I left. And I had clients and potential clients, and I at least felt comfortable enough. I wasn't making enough to fully replace my income, but I knew with the extra time putting into my business that I could. So believing in myself was part of that, which I feel like a lot of entrepreneurs struggle with.
Yeah. And I know this sounds really strange, but I was an entrepreneur when I was, probably your age, no child, but I was actually a nanny for part of that time. And I moved out of state and I did a lot of stuff. And I was so adventurous and brave. And I do think that you have I think when you're younger, you have a little bit of the benefit of not having the baggage of years of stuff as you get older, even though obviously you had a very difficult situation being young, just out of school. The domestic violence, getting that to that level where you're scared, and then having a little teeny tiny daughter, being behind with financial stuff. So bravo to you, mama, for like just pulling it together. And people talk about adulting, like it doesn't get more adult than that. I mean, that's incredible that you
for sure
figured that out. Your friends are probably just like, I don't know what color lipstick to wear today or what book to read. And you're just like trying to figure out all this stuff. That's amazing.
Yeah, most of my friends hadn't even graduated or just graduated, because I graduated early compared to so I graduated in December, and a lot of my friends graduated in May. So a lot of my friends, by the time I left the situation, were just starting their full-time jobs. And I had been in mine for almost a year at that point. Yeah.
Thank God, though, because what I see is that, and anyone listening might be in this position, is even people who have 2, 5, 10, 15 years, once they get together with somebody like this, that person quickly puts the brakes on their livelihood financially. It also builds your self-esteem to be a contributing person at work and have people admire you and, get any promotion or whatever. So thank God that you had that, because imagine still being a student, now having a little child in tow. That sounds like your saving grace in a way.
It was definitely my sanity. It saved my sanity too, because it was something to keep me going and keeping normal. And it was a safe environment because of the place that I worked. So there was always security. They were very supportive of everything going on, because with domestic violence, I had a PFA in order. There was a point where we were doing exchanges outside, like custody exchanges outside of my office, because I didn't feel safe enough to do even a custody exchange without being in a public or outside of a police station, just because of his nature and all that. So the system is very interested in learning that at a young age too, that a lot of women face. I actually was talking to a friend today on her custody, because she's like, I just don't know what to do. And I don't have the money to pay for a lawyer, so some women have to try and figure it out without paying for a lawyer.
And just to mention this, and this may not be true in every state. I know I'm in Massachusetts. I know that if you earn below a certain amount of money, there's typically at the family courthouse a lawyer of the day. And you have to stand in a long line, but at least that person can look at your paperwork, guide you through, coach you a little bit on, how to defend yourself. And I've actually had another person on, oh my gosh, his name's going to escape me. But if you want to look back on Audacious Life, he actually has a course on how to kind of prepare to defend yourself.
Oh, that's great.
So if you'd spend $300, $200 an hour, I think his course is like $200 to $500. It's less than that.
Right.
With all the inside tips, and he definitely understands the narcissistic personality, which
Right.
many lawyers do not. So even if you have one of those pricey lawyers, you can still end up in a not so great situation. And that is not to deter anybody from doing something about your situation, but be very mindful of who you're hiring. So yeah.
That is true. And definitely you want to make sure you're, documenting everything, and the person that you hire to defend actually understands the situation and has experience in it, which those usually, if there's a public defender, they've seen a lot of the situations. Yeah.
That's the benefit too, I think, with the grittiness of your situation. Sometimes it's actually better to be with a public defender who knows that system really well, even though people are like, no, get a good lawyer. The term good lawyer in this case may not mean the same as hiring somebody for your, business or whatever the other things are. I think that's a really good point.
Yeah.
So you said a bunch of things, and I just want to loop back, and I don't know how comfortable you are talking about your situation and how you got out, but many of the women listening to this podcast, especially now with COVID, are stuck, and they are stuck in more ways than one, because there's the judgment of other people. There's the not being able to lean on all the social systems that we normally do, even though, there's a little bit of long distance support through phones and Zoom and that kind of thing. It's very scary. And then the court system, if you actually do get out and you want to get divorced, it's totally backed up. And it's very difficult to get even the simplest paperwork through the system. So people are looking, women, men too, are looking for just stories of success. What?
Sorry, you cut off. My headphone kicked in somehow instead of.
Yeah, you froze for a second. So just saying, people are looking for stories of success, and kind of like first, what was the first thought you had about leaving? Did you make a plan? Did something specific happen where it escalated and you just fled? Or was it kind of a long-term situation? Was there anybody else helping you? Those are my questions. Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess I'm fortunate or unfortunate, however you want to say it. I think it's fortunate but unfortunate for my aunt, who was in a similar situation when I was in high school. So I was at least old enough to understand what was going on in this situation, and I was very close to her. So knowing that I had family members who experienced something very similar, so I had at least the basic knowledge of, okay, what are you going to put up with and what are you not going to put up with? And a lot of times when you're in the situation, your boundaries are pushed and blurred. So there's a lot of things that I put up with that I never would have. And going through therapy, I've learned because a lot of it happened because I wasn't so self-aware, and my personality type is a 2. So I'm a helper, and I crave and really thrive off of the, love of other people and feeling that affection. And narcissists are so good at providing that drug to you, but then they take it away really, really quickly. And then adding on to the fact that in hindsight, not being in the situation, noticing in this, but when we were starting to get to know each other and dating, he was intentionally trying to get me pregnant, and I had no idea of the situation. So that's another form of control that happens that a lot of people don't talk about, is then the child then becomes the pawn.
Yeah.
So what happened was we had no kind of violence or anything. I was really unhappy when I went to give birth to my daughter. It really started then. When we were pregnant, he would just leave. I was 8 months pregnant, and he went to a party and went out with friends. And, that was when I started to realize I'm doing a lot of this by myself. I had been making excuses, pretending. And And then once everything happened, we continued to fight. And there was a couple of instances where the violence started to show itself, where he would push me to a point and I'd get panicked, or I felt like I needed to leave. So there was a time that I almost moved out, but then didn't, because, I wanted to make this work for my daughter. And then there was another time where he actually finally like physically hit me and was threatening to leave me in a different state because we were at a concert. And that's when I was like, okay, I need to save a nest egg. And like by her first birthday, I will leave. Like if I can make it a year for her, that'll be enough. So I like didn't tell anybody I was doing this. I didn't tell anybody what was going on. No one knew. I literally the next day after that incident happened, I went to a bridal shower and I covered it up. Like no one ever saw the bruising. Women do that.
Yeah.
So I like to call attention to that piece because it's so easy for people, if you aren't in the situation, if you think a loved one is, it's very easy to cover it up. If you looked at my social media, it looked picture perfect, but the other side of the screen is very different. And sometimes the person going through it doesn't want to admit it. So it's hard for them to see that until they actually want to, which was I came home from being out with friends one night and he was drunk. I didn't know this at the time when I was home. When I got home and I said something and it made him mad, and he took it as I was insinuating cheating, which was not the case. I just said I wouldn't have came home. Like I would have stayed with a friend. I would have, like if he was going to be like this, I wouldn't have put myself through it.
Yeah.
And he attacked me, and I like realized in that moment, I was like, I need to get out of here. My daughter was asleep in the next room and I had to leave. So I just put my shoes on and a coat. He took my phone because he didn't want me to call the police. And I just walked out and left. And I was like, I'm pretty sure my nose is broken. I was like, I don't know what to do. So I just went to his mom's house that was a couple blocks away. And I was like, we need to call the police because I don't know. I was like, we have to document this. I was like, this isn't okay. So I just needed someone with a phone.
Yeah.
To get me that.
Did she, so she allowed you, she saw, like she at least was siding with you in that instance anyway, enough to allow you to call the police, not protecting her son. Thank God, because not all in-laws would do that, right? They'd be like,
right. I think
must have known their gut, or you wouldn't have gone there, I guess.
Yeah, well, in my gut and like in the shock, I also knew, I was like, I want them to see what he did, because he also had siblings at home, younger siblings. And I was like, this is what he's doing. And this is like, just because if you don't see it and he tries to pull some other crap, you'll believe him. So it didn't stay like that. But I at least got the police, got it documented, which if anyone's listening and going through this, document everything. I even when I didn't go to the police for other instances, I took pictures of my bruising. I took documented screenshots of pictures of threats, all this kind of stuff, because a narcissist will try to make it seem like you. There was times he would call the police on me for stuff, and I was like, I didn't, and they make me look like the crazy person, so that when things would go awry, because I'm sure he knew it would be this case of, oh, look at all these times that I had to call the police on her, where it was never really what it was like. And like, he called the police saying that I stole money out of our safe. I was like, yeah, I took money out of the safe for the rent. It was $1,000. This is how much I took out. And I knew the combination.
Right.
So, so there's things like that where narcissists will try to flip the story. They'll really change reality. But after that, I called the police, had them take me to the hospital, and had to get everything documented. And luckily parents came and helped me file the emergency order for protective custody. And we started that whole process, which has been a long and drawn out process, because then custody was a question, and that's like a whole nother side of things. But getting out and getting the custody is huge. In a lot of states, if there's no abuse towards the child, they'll still like, even though that happened to me, they were still going to let my daughter have, or him have, 2 to 3 days a week unsupervised. And it wasn't until he almost kidnapped her that, basically he did kidnap her. He kept her past the allotted time. Did they then finally impose like supervised visits? But documenting that, I recommend if anyone goes through this process, ask for the Our Family Wizard app, because it's an app that they use in the court system that the courts can have access to, lawyers can have access to, and you can't erase these messages, so that you can keep them for court and you can keep track of stuff. And it really limits the harassment, because you have to log in and, you know, people are monitoring it more than a cell phone, because, you know, it's harder to get those kind of records if someone were to erase it.
Was he still able to text you at all, or was it all through that system?
So we had a court order that he was only supposed to use that system, but our situation also got messy when he decided to leave the state. During the custody battle, or custody, I don't want to say it's a battle. It was a custody. We were still working it out through the courts, and he was asking for 50-50, but then decided to move. So he would still text me and he would still call me, and eventually I was keeping it that open just to screenshot and provide like proof that he wasn't following this order. But eventually, like, I had to make the decision, this isn't good for my mental health, because he would be sending like 1 a.m. drunk text messages, calling me multiple times in the middle of the night, or, you know, just all kinds of harassment, where with the app, it limited that. So I had to take that and block it so that he would be forced to use the proper channel of communication.
Yeah. Well, it is good sometimes to leave something like that open, so you do kind of have documentation of the fact that they're breaking the rules, right? But you're right, put yourself first, because that can be, it's a different form of controlling you, because you're still walking on eggshells. You're still, the adrenaline is there because you don't even want to look at your phone. You know that it's going to escalate, you know, and that is like, you can't go to sleep when you're in fight or flight. You can't think straight. You can't do your job. You can't take care of your kid. I mean, it's really
there's
important.
A whole layer.
Yeah. Wow. So thank you for sharing that. And so you, I don't want to say got lucky, but in a way you did, because it was so extreme, and you were able to show his parents, show the police, and you had all of those things. And then how long was it between that and then kind of landing on your own feet? Like you said, minus $400 every month as a mom, and now single mom.
Yeah. So luckily, in moving out of the house that we shared together, I started living with my aunt, the one who had gone through a similar situation, because luckily she lived close enough to where I was working and where my daughter was currently going. So we had to like completely uproot, except for my job. I had to take her out of the daycare that was, put her in a new daycare that so she wasn't like, he wasn't able to take her out of the daycare, because that daycare before, he knew where it was. He had actually followed me a couple of times to the daycare after, which was a violation of the PFA.
Right.
And anyone listening, if you have a PFA, document it and report it as much as you can, even if it's a pain. They're called in contempt of criminal. It's an ICC, basically. I forget what it's in contempt of court. But anyone who has a PFA, file those if you think it's a violation, because I've documented that, and it's a pain for you because you have to go through the hearing process, but it just goes to show that he wasn't following the PFA and that it wasn't working. Not that they can do much, but at least every time he didn't follow it, he was arrested and we had to go back. But, you know, it shows that you're going to stand your ground and not really be pushed around. But that was that's a side note. I forgot to mention that in the process of, but staying with my aunt, I worked at the same place, and I was able to get on my feet a lot quicker because I could save a little bit of money. And so this all happened in December 2018. And then by October 2019, I had started my business because I realized over the summer, and I didn't want to jump into anything. Like, I researched a bunch of different stuff. Like, I could blog, I could take a traditional route and do a part-time job somewhere. But then I was like, who's going to watch her on the weekends? I could do this, I could do that. And then I finally found something that fit. And that was the VA work, because I had the skill set already. And I was like, at least it's not going to be hard for me to get this started, and it's no capital really required. I invested in a course, which was pretty much the last of my savings, because at that point I had moved out and I was living with my sister. But it was such an investment, like, into myself, because I learned how to start an LLC, how to file for a tax document. I learned marketing tactics for marketing your business for yourself, and, subcontracting. I learned a lot about starting a business and then managing a business from that course.
So that's a VA, for anybody who's new to that term, is a virtual assistant, which can mean so many things. And I have another episode where I interviewed someone who it's all about starting your own VA business.
Yeah.
And I'll be doing more about that, because I really do think for women in the situation we're all in now, if you are having a tricky time with a corporate job or you just can't work remotely, like, VA work truly is such a great way to leap into having your own business, because everybody, for the most part, has computer skills. Even if it's not your daily thing, there's probably something you know how to do or can learn how to do quickly.
Right. I definitely, and like you said, VA is such a broad term, and that's why some people say, like, the market's really oversaturated with VAs, but I don't believe that it is, because there's different types of VAs, and there's people who wouldn't maybe say that they're a VA, but it's still similar, like social media managers, or, you could even do freelancing. It's all very much the similar. You're doing remote work. There's so many places that you can find these jobs, or just being a contractor to small businesses, where you can take on multiple contracting clients and get that experience and make that flexible schedule that you need while still making that income. And when you own your own business, you can expense a lot of personal things that you wouldn't be able to expense if you were working a W-2 job.
Yeah. And you're also I think I just did an episode about this, and I think what's missing right now with Zoom and working remote plus homeschooling, and if you have really little kids too, it's a challenge, is just that sense of agency. It's like, they own me. I had back-to-back meetings in the contract I was in, and I just left. And I know you asked me about my story, which I've told a little bit on the podcast recently, but yeah, last fall I worked for myself for about 4.5 years, and I missed human beings. I missed the office. I missed collaboration. I live in a pretty isolated area. It's beautiful, but there are not a lot of people like me here. There are like no divorced people for sure. My friends are far away. So I was like, I just miss human contact. So I had this opportunity, and it was in my favorite part of Boston, near the water. And I was just like, how am I going to make this work? And my kids were at the time in 1st and 6th grade. And I had a neighbor who was willing to help them out in the morning, and I could take the train. And honestly, it was amazing. It was perfect. It was a way to jump in and get a taste of what that was like, but it didn't last very long, because I started in September and quarantine hit, March. So then I was remote, but they were very, very traditional, and it was really tough, really tough. So I think a lot of women who are in my position, who have those types of jobs, are feeling like they're tethered to their computer. They're guilty. They feel guilty because they're not doing enough for their job, because they're torn, because they have kids, or an elderly parent, or 3 dogs, or a husband, or, whatever it is, whatever your situation is, you just don't feel like you can breathe. Like, it feels like they own you. And that's just such a crappy feeling, to not feel like you're in control of your time. And that if you had a little more control of your time, you probably could get all your work done, and you probably could help your family or whoever needs the help. It's just that you can't do it within this small traditional window that they expect, right?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I actually just talked about this on my Instagram story today because I struggled with that when I left full time because my corporate job, like you mentioned with yours, was very traditional. It was no working from home. I couldn't even do it when the pandemic started,
Wow.
because of we were working on classified government work. So, that's the nature of the job. They didn't have the ability to send us home with our with what we were doing, and we had to be at the plant for checks and stuff for the pieces. But they came to me, and because my fiance was going back to work and he was not going to be able to stay home. Like, luckily him and I had actually just bought a house right when quarantine hit. We moved in 2 days before shutdown. He got laid off. So he was home with her. I was working full time and doing this. Luckily, he had real estate on the side, so we weren't like panicking.
Yeah.
So when I came up with the idea, I was like, I want to quit. And he was like, okay. 2 weeks after I've been home full time, he was a lot more supportive. Actually, he had to talk me into going to talk to my boss because he was like, you hate this. And, luckily I did, because 2 weeks later he went back to work, and I was like, I can't do this. I need to be at home with my daughter. Like, I don't feel comfortable coming in here anymore. And they kind of came at me with the solution of, well, you can work third shift, which would have been like 4 p.m. till almost midnight. And I was like, I can't do that. Like, I can't, as soon as my fiance gets home from work, go straight into work and then come home, barely sleep, because when you have a kid, they get up so early. I was like, I will never have any time to sleep. I won't be able to. So I was like, I have to. It's bad for your health too. So
really bad for your health, yeah.
So transitioning into entrepreneurship and doing like the freelancing or the side hustle, whatever anyone listening wants to call it, it's hard to adjust to making your own rules and making your own schedule. And then boundaries is the biggest thing I see, because I really pivoted my business to helping other entrepreneurs streamline and automate systems and operations in their business. And the biggest thing I see is like, they don't stick to their boundaries, or they haven't created any. So finding what works for you, where I don't work in the mornings. I don't take meetings in the morning because that's my time with my daughter. I work better when she's napping from 1 p.m. on, and then I spend dinner time. And once she goes to bed, I work until about midnight, and then we sleep in until almost 8 a.m. Like, that's what works for me, and everyone's situation is different. Some jobs maybe with the remote might be a little bit more flexible about it, but boundaries is the biggest thing. I would tell people.
So that brings us to your story. So about what you're doing. And I think, so my goal in, kind of restarting my podcast after a long hiatus and, very haphazard episodes here and there. The one thing that I've been trying to figure out with myself is like with the direction I'm going. And I just really, really feel like I want to help women in all cases, moms, not moms, whatever. 1 million women left the workforce in September, very close to 1 million. And most of them by choice, not necessarily being laid off, but like they had no choice. There's, they had to take care of children or elderly or whatever. And, you look at the stories and it's like, what are they going to do? They have, a lot of them are high achieving women who have amazing skills. And there's so much they could do. So for them to feel like they're now stuck at home with these kids or caring for someone, and like, I know what that feels like mentally, to feel stuck. Obviously, that's why I took that contract out of my home. So it's like, how can I help them and bring on people like you who could support them in their effort to launch something at any size, on the side, as their main thing, whatever. So let's talk about what you do. You are a virtual assistant. It sounds like you do a lot of different things, but what's your main thing that you do for people starting their businesses?
Yeah.
Growing as
So yeah, I worked with a lot of women as a VA. And then when I went full time, I really niched into my background and what I really loved, which was systems and operations. So I am now really consulting on that kind of aspect of business. So I have retainer clients where they're small businesses. They don't want to hire a full-time or part-time manager for their operations, or their some online businesses call it like an integrator and or an COO, whatever. There's a bunch of different terms for it. But helping them run the day-to-day of their operations and making things easier so that they can work as the visionary in the strategy and be like the brand of their business. And then I've just recently started doing VIP days, which is more for women who don't have a team yet. They're still kind of solopreneurs, or they maybe have like a VA or a couple of contractors here or there. But they really want to grow their business, but they don't feel like they have the systems or the operations in place to do that, because they already feel like they're at max capacity. So they can't imagine taking on more work, but they're stuck at the income level that they want to surpass in their business. So I'll come in, we'll do a day of just really revamping, seeing where there's gaps, seeing where there's holes, where can we take out some inefficiencies and waste, and what are going to be your next actionable steps beyond this day, and what am I going to get set up for you on the day so that you don't have to worry about it. And they leave with actionable steps and process improvements in their business. And I just want to use my platform as a way to, one, promote everything, like I said, with domestic violence, but also my vision, my mission for the year is to help more women love their life and love their business, with just connecting people, whatever I can do to support, helping them with questions about starting their business, because I am really passionate about how women, don't have to be stuck in this day to day, or they don't have to be stuck in a corporate to satisfy or fulfill their life. There's other ways that society doesn't teach you to. Everyone's like, go get a job, go to school, get a job.
Right. Yeah.
There's other ways to do that. And sometimes people just aren't even sure where to start, looking for that info.
Yeah, so that's the direction I'm going. I have a whole bunch of resources, and I have some shorter episodes that'll probably end up being more like video tutorials, even walking people through some of the resources I found recently related to specifically moms, but also just women in the workforce, women starting businesses. And I think that there's a movement afoot because we are the safety net for America when the schools are shut down. So I noticed that like the Small Business Association has something called SCORE, and SCORE just set up like a little mini university for women entrepreneurs. And I think like that says a lot, because that's a federal organization, I believe. And, there's some kind of more boutique-ish startups that are helping women too. But when you see the government doing it, I think it says, like they see the numbers, like these women need work. There's no reason why they can't contribute to society. And it's pretty exciting. So I'm pulling together a lot of that stuff. But one of the things that while you were saying that about the startup piece, I'm wondering, what are the patterns that you're seeing with people who want to start a business, or they started it, but they're not sure they can scale because of this is what happened to me. Like I had a business that just took off in end of 2018 through 2019, but I planned to scale, but I got so stuck in the churn, and I didn't have, even though I thought I knew how to plan and put everything in place, things don't always work out as you expect. And you always have one or two clients who will push you to the hilt and eat up a lot of your time. And if you don't have something in place to either charge them or put the brakes on or whatever, it can really suck up your business and take you down big time. And if you don't have systems as a buffer, because that automates some of what you're doing, then it's even worse. So yeah, I'm just really curious what you've seen or what you recommend people consider. And obviously I'm just going to say your business is Elf Operations.
Yeah,
Emma Ferrick. You're going to have an intro. We didn't even talk about your name.
that's
Um,
okay.
yeah. So we will talk about your business and we'll have a link to it. But so just curious if you see any patterns or that sort of
So
thing.
I think with women especially, they want to give, they want to support, and they want to help, which is never a bad thing. But then they don't assign themselves the boundaries.
Yeah.
So one thing that I worked on, I had trouble with this. I've seen other people, I've helped my clients with it, is what are your non-negotiables? Like write that down before you even take clients, because I had clients where I just, you get in the point of I need money, so I'm going to take on any client for money. Where there was a couple times last year I wasn't making enough, but I wasn't going to take the client because I knew it was going to suck my time.
Yeah.
Where I wouldn't be able to look for other clients. So, setting those boundaries of what do you want to do? Who do you want to work with? Like, what type of people do you want to work with? And, what are going to be your times to really set aside those times of where you're going to work. And I know I work flexible hours, I work really late at night. But I designate that time for these are my meeting times. Like this is when you can schedule a meeting with me. If it doesn't work, we can schedule like a one-off. But there was like a client I had who wanted to do 8:30 meetings every Monday, and then 2 or 3 times a month she would miss or not hop on the call. And I'm like, look, you can't do that to me. Like that's the time I'm getting my daughter up. Like it's usually chaotic for me. So know what you're going to have your boundaries be. Kind of going back to that, you need to set what your boundaries are. Don't let people walk all over them. And it's going to be uncomfortable and you're going to feel really mean, but unless you do it, they're going to keep doing that. They're going to keep walking all over you. And setting up contracts, a lot of women don't, or entrepreneurs, I'm not going to just say just women, but people starting just don't have contracts that are going to cover them. So if you're going to invest money into something, there's templates you can get that are $300-400 that are by actual lawyers, and get those at least to start. And then as you grow, get something checked out by a professional, and keeping your finances separate. That's a huge thing. If you're going to start something, have a business account to make your life easier at tax time. Because I've seen that happen with clients of mine. They didn't start out with separate accounts, and it got really messy. But they blew up with their business more so than they thought, and then they were like scrambling to pick up these pieces. So those I think would be setting the boundaries, knowing what you're going to do and not do, which is, I know it's like really overwhelming, because I was like, I don't want to say I'm not going to work with someone if I don't know. Like you're going to have some trial and error, but you need to be ready to have some uncomfortable conversations where, I hated getting to an end of a contract and they wanted to work with me, but I'm saying like, I can't do this, or I'm taking my business in a different direction. And I would be in literal anxiety the day before, because I just my people pleasing was so like high. So that was something I had to work on. So you're definitely going to have to take a hard look at what you want to do, I think, which is not to deter anybody. I think it's good because it'll flow over into other relationships in your life.
That is such a great point. And I always say, like, and you probably know this now too, it's like entrepreneurism is like the best self-development experience, right? You're going to learn where your fears are, your blocks are, all your challenges, and they are going to, maybe take you to your knees, like, because you can't pay your rent because you're too much of a people pleaser or whatever. In a pretty extreme way. And people have pretty crazy stories about that. So yeah, that was all really, really great advice. And I actually I'll put it in the show notes, but I have an interview with a lawyer who has some phenomenal templates, and she can, you guys can look in the show notes for that. There was one more thing that you said that I was going to ask about, and I'm trying to remember what it was now. Yeah, I think just, I guess the other thing I wanted to say is that we're talking about VA work, which is trading time for money. And one of the other things that I would love to encourage women to do, and I'll be doing this year too, is just more affiliate marketing. Like, you're going to be working with people and using tools. You can recommend to your people that they adopt the tools that you're signed up as an affiliate for. So when they purchase that tool, often it's a recurring monthly fee, you're getting a piece of that. Or maybe there's stuff in your personal life that you use all the time. You can post about that on your social media and tell people about it. That's affiliate marketing. And then, mini courses, like, you're going to learn if you're a VA or you have some skill, even if you just created a $17 or a $27 product, which I have multiple in mind that I have not released yet myself, but I will be doing that. Like, that little bit of money adds up really quickly, and it can be kind of the beginning of something beautiful, because then you're not constantly counting on somebody else, and you're trading your time for your money, so you can be with your family and have some freedom.
Yeah. I also would like to encourage, if you're going to do VA work, try to start out with like retainer or a flat rate package, because then you're going to have at least a better idea or a better forecasted income. So, and you only have so many hours. You don't have to tell them that's how many hours they're getting, but you can budget your time better if you know, oh, I have 3 retainer clients and each retainer client is an average of 10 hours a week or something. You don't have to tell them you're getting this many hours, just saying you're getting this, and this, and showing the value you're adding. People will pay for that. And you can have, if you're doing contracting, VA work or freelancing, because you don't have to, just do it as, you can do it as freelancer. Some people just like that term better. But then you can have that forecasted income. Like you said, that you're not like, oh, I'm not going to have enough for rent. I definitely love affiliate income. That's huge, and growing your email list is big for that too. But affiliate income is definitely something passive.
Exactly. Yeah. And there are more things, and we'll talk more about those on this as we move ahead in this podcast. In general, what's the best way for people to get you, Emma? Was that your kid?
Yeah, she's coming in. Best way to get a hold of me is on Instagram, elf_operations. Facebook, I have my Elf Operations page, or if you want to check me out and friend me, I'm Emma Ferrick, and I just started my own Facebook group, which is Overwhelmed to Optimized, and it is a group for women to connect and collaborate, learn how to streamline and automate their business. And I will be having different guest speakers coming in as well, especially in the financial side of things, because I know people struggle when they want to make that leap. How are they going to, finance wise, make it all work and profit and cover their bases with things like that. So I want to bring in some subject matter experts this year on that, with, like you said, women, kind of having to come home and find these alternative ways. So if anyone's interested, they can come join, connect, and meet other women.
What's it called again? See the name of the Facebook group?
Overwhelmed to Optimized.
Overwhelmed to Optimize. Okay. Awesome. We'll find a link so people can join that way more easily through the show notes. This has been amazing, Emma. Hopefully we will collaborate in the future.
Yes.
I'll be in touch with you about my business for sure. And yeah, I just think everything that you touched on, you have an amazing story, and I'm so glad that you're weaving in the reality of your situation, because I think more people need to do that. Again, it's always surprising to me when I interview these very successful people, and they're like, oh yeah, I went through that. It's my first husband or my first whatever. And they don't really talk about it. So they're on the podcast because they choose to be on, but it's something to be proud of. I mean, you've just, talk about from the ashes arising, right? Like, that's what you've done. So
plus, I think for people to talk about it and make it more normalized, because I went through a bunch of stuff when I like got out of everything, and then like fixing everything, I was just like, I felt so guilty or so like ashamed. I never wanted to talk about it. I felt embarrassed, and I was like, why should I feel embarrassed? I didn't do anything wrong, like maybe I was blinded to some things, but that's not just completely my fault for being a good person or like wanting to be a good person. So I think a lot of women just, if they see and hear other people talking about it, and I vowed if I got through it, I would share my story and help other women. So my goal is, I don't know how I'm going to do it or what it's going to be, but I want to have a virtual event because, in-person events aren't happening, but where it's all about women empowerment. So I'd love if once I have figured out, but I want the whole thing to be proceeds going back to a women's shelter in Pittsburgh, to help women like this.
Awesome.
Just to give back to people to go through it.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And just a lot of people are on Instagram. So I just want to say, just with normalizing this and talking about it, there is something called confessional right now. If you look that up on Instagram, and people are outing the narcissists in their lives. And I just read about from scarymommy.com, the article. I was like, oh, I love this. So yeah, go look for confessional. I don't know if it's a hashtag. I didn't see it as a hashtag, but it might be. And people are saying, whether it's their mother-in-law, their sister, their neighbor, their husband, their whatever, they're not going to put up with it. And they're just sharing stories. And I just think, I said to my friend earlier, like 4 or 5 months ago, I said, this year, like the way things are going, narcissists and their nonsense, people are not going to be putting up with it and not covering for them anymore. Like, it's just not going to be acceptable. People are becoming more awake, more aware, more authentic. They don't have time for the surface BS and the schmoozing and the manipulation that happens with narcissists. And so I'm so validated to see this. I'm like, this is awesome. So yeah, so go.
I can't wait to check it out.
I know. So just confessional. I think that's the catchphrase. And then there's like a number, like 256,000 and whatever, like this really long number. I read it from an article, so I haven't had time, literally just read it. So I haven't had time to really check it out yet. But anyway, exciting.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Well, can I ask you a question, I guess, about what your business was before and like, what do you plan on doing? Are you still with the company then? So
I left my contract, but the business that I was doing before that was, I was helping authors, spiritual entrepreneurs, and mom entrepreneurs with their amplifying their authority. That was my package, Amplify Your Authority. And that was basically helping them with their personal branding. So whatever their messaging was, helping them with logo design, colors, all of that stuff. A one sheet to help them get on podcasts. One of my favorites is a how to pitch a podcast. And then from there, helping them with, okay, now let's repurpose. Your message is out there. You can spin this off into so many different things. And so some of them wanted to become speakers. Some of them wanted to just build their email list, build their social, just get a name for themselves, or even start networking. And it was all good. I got totally burnt out. So I'll be doing more of that and teaching. My goal is actually, I was going to partner with somebody who has a VA company, but I'm going to do it myself. I'm going to teach people how to become podcast VAs the way that I know with my 2 podcasts. Like, I'm very involved with other podcasters, and I know what people need, and I know my process. I know what works, and I know what I did with my others, for my other clients.
Yeah. That's awesome. I know there's a lot of people that you can help, even if you match people, because what'd you say, honey? You want a snack?
Your snack.
What snack? I don't have. Oh, here.
Yeah, that's a snack.
There you go.
And your snack.
I forgot I had it on here.
Sure.
I thought it was a wrapper.
Yeah.
but just people who I've like seen, they don't have a process at all, or like it just takes forever, that I've been on like a guest of a couple of them and then like pitched to, and I'm just like, want to help you, but that's not like my main niche. So it's
Yeah.
like, it's so easy to pinpoint, and you could just pair people up once if you do train the VAs, but something like that, I could see that being big.
We will definitely be talking, because that's part of it, is like, I know how to teach the skills, and I definitely have my own process, and I'm kind of I let my process break, whatever. And so I'm getting back into it, but I also know the common pitfalls for us as podcasters, and whether it's social media promotion, not getting subscribers, not marketing what's already been done, but focusing on new content, and it's just, there's so many, and I'm sure you probably know many more pitfalls than that too, but
I mean, it's on my goal list to start a podcast this year, but not wait till, I'm going to wait till later, because I want to just, there's some things I have more short term that I want to do. And as much as I love podcasting, because it helped me through like everything. So that's why I love it.
Me too. Awesome.
And you can just learn so much from it.
I'm just such a consumer. I mean, I have a membership to YouTube, and I use YouTube as a podcast. Like, I don't even watch it. I mostly just listen, because I'm always doing other stuff.
Yeah.
So between YouTube and, all the podcasts all together, and audiobooks, it's just such a great passive way to learn, grow, all of it. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh. That's awesome. I'm so glad we got to connect and got to talk, even if it was last minute. I was like, we're actually traveling on Friday, so I was like, I hope we can do it today, because we're going camping. But I was like happy that I didn't even know like the whole, from your profile, I thought you were still, doing stuff or like actively. And I was like, I just really loved your profile and your mission and your purpose. So I'm really glad we got to connect.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. Thank you for reaching out. Well, so this is a good example. We can have this in the podcast. You reached out from LinkedIn and it worked, and you got on a podcast. Now we're going to I know I'll be in touch with you again, Emma, probably for several different things, and I will refer people to you for sure. But I just think, you can't lose just trying.
Yeah, I wasn't even intending to pitch to be on the podcast. You brought it up and I was like, oh, of course, I'd love to. I just like want to share my story and help other women, find their passion.
Yeah, me too. No, I envision a big retreat with women who are sharing their stories of getting out, creating something like this independence, financial independence, being audacious, thriving, and creating a life that they always knew that they had, but they've been stuck in this yuck, and getting out. And that's what puts a smile on my face. So I think we have a similar mission.
We do. I would love to go to just something like that. I also miss being in person with people. I want to go to networking and conferences, and that's the other benefit of owning your own business is you can expense that. So if we travel for something like that, I can expense it, and you get to expense the personal development too. Exactly. So it's a tax write-off.
No, it's the best. And I learned how much I love it when I left. You know what I mean? It didn't take me long to see I'm not meant to be in corporate America. I'm meant to have my own business. And, there were lots of nice people, and I learned some good skills, but this is my sweet spot. Much happier. So.
I'm so happy for you that you are doing it and bringing it back.
Yeah, me too. Thank you. Yeah. And so I will just be in touch with, when this goes live. And thank you so much for your time, for your flexibility and sharing your story. I don't know if you have any fear around that at all, but if you do, please let me know.
No, I've overcome that a little bit. I feel like every time I say it, it gets a little bit easier.
Yeah, that's good. So you're not worried about him and the repercussions?
No, I was the first time I shared it on another mom podcast, I was really, really worried. But I went through some coaching this year I had a huge mindset block of, if I'm successful, is he going to see it and come after me, or,
Right.
you know, like, is he going to prevent me from becoming successful? And
Mm-hmm.
I was just crippling my own success at that rate. And, you know, I have people in my corner that love me and are going to support me and know the truth about me. So I'm not 100% worried. And I know I have people that will always be on my side.
Yay. I love it. Find those people, because we can totally hold ourselves back. I've done it. So those are major words of wisdom. So rewind, listen to that again, please. Super important. That's good.
The truth comes out.
Yes.
People will see it.
Yeah, exactly. Who you are speaks for itself, I think, in your success and how you're raising your daughter, like just all of that too. It's just, you know who you are. Stand in who you are and the truth.
And the people that are important to you will know who you are. Like the thousands of people on Instagram or Clubhouse or Facebook or TikTok, like if they believe that, you know, I think that's what people fear, is like all the other people thinking that, but they, one, don't pay your bills, and two, they're not in your house every day. So as long as the people that you love and care about know the truth, which they obviously will, you know, nothing else matters in any way.
Words to live by. Love it. Clapping. All right. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Emma. Enjoy your weekend.
Thank you. You too.
Yeah, I will, definitely. And I'll be in touch. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.